Hi, welcome back to my channel. And in case you're new here, I'm Joanna and I make weekly videos about motivation, organizing, and lifestyle. In today's video, I wanted to talk to you guys about planners. If you want to get more productive, you cannot do it without a planner. You need to have a clear plan on what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, and how are you going to go about achieving it. That's why it's so important to choose your planner well. You won't be able to part with it once you pick whichever one suits you better. Usually we have just two choices, paper planner and digital. Which one are you going to go for? In today's video, I'm going to quickly cover cons and pros of each of those, and hopefully based on what I'm going to tell you, you'll be able to make a better informed choice before really committing to either or. Let's start with the paper planner. I really like the paper planners because you get to feel your handwriting on a piece of paper. There is nothing like it. You cannot compare it to anything. And if you ask those reading books and question between digital and the paper version of it, there's always this one person who's going to comment on that smell of paper. There is something to it, to that smell. So if you know yourself that you're not going to be able to part from the smell, go ahead, paper version is for you. Another thing is stationery. Whenever I'm in the store, I will somehow always end up in the stationery alley and just keep looking at different pens, markers, even though my house is full of them already. But there's just something very comforting to owning so many stationery pieces. I just know I'm not going to run out of them anytime soon. But in this way, I am really able to decorate my planner the way I really want it to be, to draw my attention to the most important things. It just helps me plan better. Also, we cannot forget the fact that a paper planner is always going to be in front of you. So unless you forget it at home, it's always going to be there. If you're working on your computer or you're doing something else, you can quickly glance over to your side and it's just going to be there for you, that you can quickly glance through without stopping yourself to click through the different tabs on your computer. I find that very easy, and it's not as distracting as it normally is switching between the different tabs on my computer. Another important aspect for me when owning a paper planner is the fact that I now have a physical copy of it at my home. I remember when I was still back at the university, I had my little planner with me when I would write down anything that I needed to get done. And very often I am actually going back to it and just see what was I up to at this time of the year those many years ago. So it actually is something that you will be going back to if you are a person who likes those little memory pieces like me. Technically, your digital planner is going to be there with you as well unless you delete it, but how likely is it actually going to be for you to go through all of those different things that you saved up on your cloud space, for example? Highly unlikely. Even the photos that I have taken some months ago, I'm not really looking at them anymore unless there is a really relevant moment that is attached to those photos. If this is a very random moment that I decided to snap, I am highly unlikely to go back to it at a later point. When it comes to the digital planner, the most important pro towards a digital planner is that you can actually link it up, hook it up to any of your other apps that you're using, like your mail, your calendar. You can even share it with other people so they can have a glance at what your week looks like or what your travel plans are. Just an example. Something that you cannot really do when you're writing things down in your paper calendar. Of course, you can take a photo of it and share it that way, but it's not exactly the same. You can't have another person working at the same time with you on your calendar, adding different things. But those are the advantages and disadvantages of either or. And if you are like me, getting really stressed out when something is not perfectly lined up, digital is going to be your savior. Of course, with the technology that is going behind the digital, you no longer need a ruler to get everything straight and measured up, which is going to give you your valuable time back. With your digital planner, you can now align everything to be centered to the right, to the left, without ever getting any mistakes. Also, with the digital planner comes unlimited space. Even if you started writing page after page, but you decided that you need to add something extra in between the two pages, you can easily create a page in between or even shuffle your pages along just like you need this. Whereas with the paper version, you're kind of stuck with how you organized your papers first. But with all those pros come, of course, some cons. So for the paper version of your planner, you're definitely going to make loads and loads of mistakes. And if you're like me, you are going to hate every single one of them. Sure, you can wipe them out, but is this what you really want? So a lot of the times, to avoid those wipeouts and crossovers, I would write everything down in a pencil so I could erase it. But then having to rewrite all of this in a pen, that wasn't really good for me. And if you go with writing by pen or using your different kinds of stationery that you buy, you have to take into account that sometimes your paper might bleed. So it's something that you should always check whenever you have your stationery and it's new for you, you're not really familiar with the paper texture and how pigmented your markers are. Test it all out just so you know what you can expect. And depending on whether you are right or left-handed, you might have the problem of having your palm resting on the piece of paper, and as you are writing, you kind of smudge the ink all around the paper. That's another thing to take into account. Another big con for me when it comes to paper planners is the fact that I'm very perfectionist when it comes to my handwriting. I wish it was beautiful and I wish that I would always be able to write in the same way. Unfortunately, this does not usually ring true. A lot of the times my handwriting is really rushed, and sure enough, I am able to read it, but it doesn't really look, aesthetically pleasing. And depending on the version of the calendar planner that you get for yourself, it may or may not get really bulky. The one that I am using right now is pretty big and pretty heavy. It's pretty, it has loads of things inside, but yeah, there's times when I feel like just leaving it at home because my bag is already a little bit too heavy. And if you choose to leave it at home, then you need to face yourself with the situation that you just won't have access to your notes, or you won't be able to take any notes while you're outside. And when it comes to your digital version, you are definitely going to see how time consuming it can really be to figure it all out. Sure, you have to remember that we are very accustomed to being able to do a lot of the things on paper. You want to write on your right hand or a left hand, sure, no problem. But with the digital version, you kind of need to discover how each of the programs work, what buttons you need to press in order to get the effect that you really need. So it all really depends on the program, and it just takes time to kind of learn all of it, get it to where you want it to be. Another thing to take into account when using the digital planner is the way it actually feels when you're using your stylus to write on it. So here's my Apple Pen, and whenever I'm using it to write on my iPad, for example, I find it that it's not very difficult. I mean, your palm reading is very good and quite accurate, but it's not that same feeling of writing on a piece of paper. This writing on an iPad is a little bit slippery, and sure enough, you can get screen protectors that make your screen feel a little bit more paper-like, but it's another investment that you need to make. And personally, I'm using my iPad for all sorts of other things, not just for planning, so it wasn't a priority for me to get it, but it's definitely a good thing to keep in mind. Another thing that you need to take into account is that you might not always be able to use your digital planner. You have to remember why you're going to be using it and when you're going to be using it the most. So if you're, for example, in school or university, of course that all depends on your school or university rules, but a lot of the times when you're in school, you're not allowed to use any technology, not your phone or tablet, while you're having lessons. So if you might want to add something quickly to your calendar, you might not even be allowed to do that. So that's another thing to kind of keep in mind when deciding if you want to be using your paper or digital version. And finally, probably the biggest con of the digital planner is the fact that if you close it, or you close the tab that you had your planner open at, it's kind of out of your mind already until you open the app again. So it's very easy to stop working on the things that you should be working on. You don't keep track of all the things that needed to be done that day. It's just so much easier to forget all about it. I have for you a bonus tip. If you're not quite convinced whether the paper version or the digital version is the right fit for you, I might be able to help you out a little bit. If you still prefer the feel of paper and you're not really bothered with all the mistakes that you might be making, but at the same time you love the fact that you can connect it to all of your different apps on your phone and have it right on the go, you might want to look up the possibility of having those very smart planners that you can write in, snap a picture of them, and use their dedicated app to have all of your digital planner pages stored in there. You might have very easy access to all of your notes. They're even this smart that it reads your own handwriting, so whenever you're looking for a different keyword, you can type that in and it will read right through all of your scanned pages and give you a nice list of everything you might be looking for. If you're interested to find out a little bit more about these, I'm going to link them all down in the comment section. I'm going to also link to my paper calendar in case you would be interested in getting one for yourself as well. I really recommend them. They're really beautiful, and at the end of them you have some nice stickers to help you plan better. This is it for today. I really hope that with this video I helped you make a decision towards either or, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!